I'm your host, I Say It Through the Tears. This is another Fireside Chat. Today we're talking about knowing the root and origin of whatever it is you put your mental energy into. We came in here and sat down. We sat down and there was a bunch of Mormons sitting over there compared to the Mormons.
So you have 3 white boys and... Okay, well, no, you have 3 white boys and 1 black.
So then, what happens is this.
He said he's not white.
Because, again, the Negro defended me.
The Negro, okay, wait a minute, let's go back. No, I'm going to do real quick, just because he said they're not all white. One is the Mexican, or Olmec, right? Something that's not Caucasian. You have 2 blue eyes, and then you have 1 brother that supposedly is from Haiti. So I'm like, wow, interesting to see a brother that's a Mormon. And so, then this is the story.
Let's talk about the history that they don't tell them. One of the histories is, there was a guy named Brigham Young, and a guy named Joseph Smith. Brigham Young was a dude who basically carved out a place in Utah after the traditional Moorish Empire. After the traditional Moorish Empire was broken up. So when they started to get rid of Moors and people that look like me, a lot of the Freemasons who adopted the Moorish science in secret, like Brigham Young, decided to incorporate a lot of the tenets of the Moors into this new pseudo-religion that he was trying to create. Because what they wanted to do was create a religious path for themselves to live as Moors without really being Moors. So he comes up with this whole Book of Mormon thing, and then comes up with the gods of this that were called the Moroni. Now the Moroni were the gods who basically allegedly came down and built with Jesus when he came into the American shore. Now all of this came from the Circle 7 Quran as well as the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus Christ. But what the Book of Mormon does have, it talks about the 364 years of intermittent conflict between the original tribes, the Amalekites, the Levites, the this, the that were already over here. So after a certain amount of time, he got a bunch of Caucasian people who were trying to leave and get out of the jurisdiction of the Union. So he brought them to a place called Utah and basically set up the tenets of what would be the so-called Mormon religion. So the problem with that, though, was that he basically set himself up to be the prophet, but he himself was only a 32nd degree Freemason that was basically out of the Knights of Pythias Lodge, as well as it was the Knights of Pythias and the Knights of the Golden Circle. But what happened was when he decided to adopt Moorish science and start living with his people, like the reason why this is why they practice polygamy, this is why they dress in all white, this is why they act like they follow the Bible, but really this dude was setting himself up to be a white Moor, what's called a Tawny Moor. So the United States government knew that he was basically trying to set up his own thing to make himself God. So what they decided to do was attack them. And so the Mormons agreed that the only way that they could still be a religion is if they get away from some of the tenets of the Moorish science. So right now, the gods in the Moorish science, the gods of the Mormons, are the Moors, but they don't know that because they're encoded in the term Moroni, M-O-R-O-N-I, right? That is the God, but that is a code. That's a code word. But because they're not initiated into the higher mysteries of the whole thing, they don't really know. So they'll look at somebody like us and think that we clowning them. But really, they need to build with us if they want to know why they're not getting certain knowledge or why they're not being promoted. So one of the terms they use for their acolytes or slaves is elder. Because they want to make them think that they're older than they really are, because they're really not. The term elder is also the connection with the Moorish name, because El in elder is the eels of the Moroni, which represents the Moors on high, right? Gave Brigham Young the science for him to set up the pseudo-religion that they call Mormonism, which is really a deified, bastardized version of Moorish science, what do you call it, Scottish Rite, Freemasonry, and and limited Judaism based upon their attachment to the Old Testament. Judeo-Christianity, essentially. But they practice it more in science, which is why they deal with polygamy, which is why they dress in all white, which is why they call their spot, which is why they call their place of worship a temple, which is why they follow the Moors on high. When you look at the pictures of the Moors on high, the Morana, right? It's a bunch of Moors making salat. I know because my man went to the Christian temple that they don't know about in Utah and seen the whole thing. And it's a bunch of Moors like me with pheasants and all of that. And he asked them, he said, well, who is this? They said, oh, those are the Morana. So now he's a Moor. Now he looked to see, and he looked at it, he's like, oh, so the Morana are the Moors on high. Okay, these are the ones that gave you the Safrai. But see, all of that is 86 name because they got to keep the racial specific aspect that is going